you come from a very hardcore corporate background in a very, for lack of a better word, a very white corporate background. You mean you worked for GE, you were at the Cleveland Clinic, you come from these corporate settings that are very hardcore corporate structure. They don't really, I mean, they do now, but they didn't come from the cultures that they have, diversity initiatives, and that was a big deal. So I guess, what did you feel that you contributed, or did you contribute anything to the changing of the culture, or did you feel that, that there's nothing I can do to change it?
First of all, at GE, when I got there, I ended up becoming the head for the National Hispanic Organization at GE. It was there before I got there. I co-chaired it with a guy from Florida, and we gave it a lot of juice. And at the Cleveland Clinic, they did not have a diversity program, even though they were centered right in the middle of Cleveland. And so we hired a big-time diversity officer, professor at Cleveland State University, who taught the diversity degree program there. And at Nielsen, we broadly introduced all of the ERGs and have made an awful lot of progress in that regard. I always think that change is best done inside out. I don't think anybody ever comes in and says, when I was at GE, or when I came from, or there's a fairness or legal imperative. You try to go into a big organization that for years has figured out how to move and try to drop stuff like that, and it doesn't work. So my view around diversity has always been that there should be no barrier to the flow of best ideas or talent across an organization, including those based on biases related to gender or national background, all that. And number one. Number two, as another tenet, is that effectively we're all in a race for brains, all of them. And three is that no one race, including the one that's been dominant in the past in this country, is any smarter or any better. It's just circumstances. And if you're going to win, and if you're going to compete and win, then whoever gets good about the fewest barriers in thinking, including those barriers that get constructed around diversity, whoever has the best access to all the brains is going to be very powerful, not only in the United States, but they're going to get pretty good globally too. And it is a compelling business case. Now, all you have to do is work with your own groups to perform on it. Because the minute you make that case, everybody's going, yeah, sure, show me. But when you start hitting the universities, or you start bringing people forward that haven't had access before, when you start talking about demographies, when you start talking about growing globally, people listen. And now you just got to get people to perform. And so you can't get people who grew up under a different model that said, you know, we're either victims or they're not going to give me a chance. You got to get people to step up. And when you start getting people to step up, things start to change. And so we've been able to, in the businesses I've worked, to change representation at the leadership side, and to try to get leaders to go beyond, you know, a feeling that they think that if they're just good people and liberal and say it's a good ideal, but that they actually have to produce. They have to actually change the representation. They actually have to mentor diverse candidates. They have to sponsor them, and they have to produce results in terms of much higher yield rates than the past in terms of women into executive roles and minorities into the workforce. You got to make that happen. You got to make it part of the business case. We've been able to do it in all of those businesses. The difference, I think, in the companies I've worked in over the course of 3 years has been significant. But like I said, you have to do it from the inside out. Every diversity program I've seen that has failed has always been around social justice or some kind of imperative that doesn't really relate to the business you're in. Mm-hmm. But the one that talks about competitive advantage and the fact that somebody out there, some company is going to get really good at this, why shouldn't it be us? Then you got a shot. Mm-hmm. You got a shot. But I've never wanted to kind of go with the flow because it's like, I don't know, death.